never explore past. Stay inside of your
Take it back to mainstream media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Thom Hartmann here with you.
Nice when the postman has a letter in a sack for you.
Oh, we get mail. Yes, there's lots of ways to communicate with us over at ThomHartmann.com. You can participate in our live chat room. Hey to the folks in the chat room there. And you can create your own blog at ThomHartmann.com. You can participate in the message board and the threads in the message board. All of this is free. Or there's a well, it's not a toll-free number, but there's a phone number that you can call and leave messages for us. Here's one we got yesterday.
Hey, I hope we discussed the San Francisco-Bay Bridge being constructed in China for delivery by ship next month and installation by Chinese workers. We just like to come across into our country without proper taxation. Thanks a lot. Bye.
You know, when I first heard that, I thought, what? And so we Googled the story, and yes, this from Foreign Policy magazine. How much will San Francisco's Chinese bridge really cost? An article in the New York Times, apparently, about the San Francisco-Oakland-Bay Bridge having been made in China, now being readied for shipment. It's going to be snapped together like an erector set. Now, here you've got Ben Bernanke going out going, the economy has stalled, and I don't know why. I mean, that's quite literally, I mean, not word for word, but that's what he said last week. The economy is slowing. I don't know why. Well, I'll tell you why. We're not even making our own bridges here. Brian Peterson, project director of the American Bridge Floor Enterprises, told the Times, I don't think the U.S. fabrication industry could put a project like this together. Then build the industry. But actually, you know, building it in China was, the city of San Francisco is going to save $400 million, or at least they think they're going to save $400 million. Frankly, if they'd built a factory outside of San Francisco where the workers were getting well paid and the money was staying here in the United States, it would stimulate their economy and they would make more than but set that argument aside. They tell the story about the people who are building the bridge. The New York Times, for example, 55-year-old steel polisher Pan Zhongwang. He arrives at work at 7 a.m. and leaves at 11 p.m., 7 days a week, for $12 a day plus a bed in the company dormitory. That's why the Chinese can build the bridge cheaper than Americans. And that's why, if it comes into the United States, there should be a 20 or 30% tariff on it. We should be making these things I'm just astounded. This is the bridge that collapsed and the pieces of it in the earthquake. They're building. You know, I can understand the importation of lightweight stuff because shipping doesn't cost so much, but a bridge? And even with the lightweight stuff where it has high value, why are we exporting those jobs? You know, we used to have slavery in the United States. The ultimate cheap labor. Now, of course, there's, you know, conservatives and corporations trying to bring it back with private prison where they do manufacturing and compete with for-profit businesses and other businesses in the United States, which is another form of slavery, in my opinion. But at least back in the days of slavery, there was a robust fight in the United States about whether slavery was moral or right because the slaves were visible. We had to look into their eyes. Now that we send our slavery overseas, we no longer look into the eyes of our slaves. So the clothes you're making, the clothes you're wearing were made by people in close to slavery conditions. The computer that you're using, fill in the blank. And the difference, we don't look into the eyes of our slaves. We didn't end slavery in the United States. We just exported it. And that's very, very ugly, as we say. 866-987-THOM, our telephone number. And David in Springfield, Mass. Hey, David, what's up?
Tom, I don't want to change the subject, but are you really telling the truth about a bridge that's going to be put together like an erector set?
I am not making this up. You can Google it.
Let's find out who in California was responsible for allowing such a contract to be given.
The article talks about how it was a series of politicians who are no longer in office, from Mayor Willie Brown in San Francisco to Arnold Schwarzenegger, the governor, to assemblymen and women. I mean, there's a whole bunch of politicians involved in this, and most of them are now gone. And it was to try to save the city money.
First of all, let's question whether the bridge should have even been built, whether there was a need. And secondly, how about grand jury indictments against these people for subverting this country?
Well, the problem is, you know, I'm with you in your anger and your sentiment, but the problem is it's legal. What happened was in 1996 when Bill Clinton signed NAFTA and the GATT agreements, the Uruguay round of the GATT agreements, creating, or not creating the World Trade Organization, but binding the United States to the World Trade Organization. This is what we got out of it. And China and Japan, and thank you for your call, David, China and Japan, South Korea. I had this conversation last night with Eamon Fingleton. You can see the video on our website at thomhartmann.com. Eamon is a former reporter for Forbes magazine and the Wall Street Journal, and he lives in Japan, and he's an Irish economist, and he understands this stuff. And he said, you know, there's not, you know, there's this story out there that Japan has been experiencing 2 decades of stagnation. He said, actually, Japan, they have the most modern telephones, they have the most modern cars, they have modern transportation systems, everybody has health care, everybody has retirement, everything is just fine, thank you very much. Their stock market's not doing so all that well. Their rich people aren't getting radically richer like the rest of the world, but working people in Japan, no problem. You know, Fukushima was a bump in the road. It's caused a problem. But setting that aside, and why? Because they engage in a protectionist trade policy, period. And he said until the United States begins doing the same, we're just going to see, we're going to continue to see this kind of thing, and we're going to continue to be screwed.